Hey, remember me? The guy who died? I'm back to talk about more stupid Linux stuff. Yeah! So in my last Linux-focused video, I was talking about distros and recommending distros to people, and I said that Ubuntu and Linux Mint were my go-to picks for beginner-friendly, like, hey, you can jump in and just do kind of whatever with this kind of distro. Immediately after posting that video, I was made aware of Fedora's existence, and I had a couple people in the comments section tell me, hey, maybe you could check out Fedora in the future, because, that's like the new big beginner-friendly, like, hyper distro or whatever. So that's what this video is about. We're gonna be trying out Fedora Linux, so you don't have to, or something. We're talking about Fedora Linux, like... Also, I did not buy a fedora to wear in this video. Look, I may hate myself. I don't hate myself that much, all right? No fedoras. No, we're not wearing those. So what is the goal of this endeavor? Like, why am I trying out Fedora? There's a couple of things that I wanted to get done. First, I wanted to set up everything I normally do on a computer and see how easy or difficult it is. Things like gaming, emulation, like Discord, browsing the internet, stuff like that. And the only other goal I have with this is to use as many flat packs as possible. Mostly this is just to test out flat packs and see if it really is as painless as a bunch of people are saying. Like, is this really the future of package distribution in Linux? And low-key, the rest of this is just to spite the guy who's making Lutris, because he doesn't appreciate flat packs and immutable root systems, and I think that's gatekeepy and kind of assholey of him, so spite! Let's go! I guess it would only be right if I first talk about the actual computer I'm using to perform these tests. This is FrankenPav. This is my secondary computer that I use to test out a bunch of random bullshit. It's got an Intel i7 6700K, and it's got a GTX 970 in it. If you want more details, I don't got time for that shit. Go watch this video instead. Let's talk a little bit about Fedora and explain what it is, where it came from, and why any of us should care. Remember in the last distro video where I said that Debian and Arch are completely different, like, family trees of Linux, and that they have their own little forks and branches that you can follow and they don't really intersect with each other? Let me introduce you to another one. This is Red Hat. This is the Enterprise Linux. What does that mean? Red Hat is the version of Linux that is used by, like, the big data centers. So if you see that big room that's full of a shit ton of computers that are all on racks and everything, if it's running Linux, it's probably a version of Red Hat. Well, why am I talking about this? It's because Fedora is based on Red Hat, you fucking Neanderthal. Why don't you listen to me? So this begs the question, why would I even bother going with a Red Hat-based distribution? Does it matter? What are the differences? What are the pros and cons of running Red Hat versus Debian? Look, people just said that this was a good beginner-friendly distro, so I wanted to approach this thing like a new user would. Like, I wanted to set everything up without opening up a single terminal window. And, spoiler alert, I couldn't do that. All right, history lesson, preamble, all that stuff over. Let's actually install Fedora. I was honestly a bit surprised at how easy this was. I would equate its level of ease of use with that of Linux Mint. So, a short video, right? A new user could very easily install Fedora and get it up and running just fine. Well, if said new user happens to have an Nvidia graphics card, which a lot of people have Nvidia graphics cards, you're gonna have a little bit of problems with Fedora, because Fedora does not ship with the proprietary Nvidia drivers. And I'm pretty sure the reason for that is because Fedora doesn't like to ship their distro with any proprietary software. They like to go the whole everything's free and open source route when building and packaging up all their software for their distro, which I get. Like, I understand why they do the way they do. It's still really fucking annoying. I'll give the Fedora team credit. The actual process of installing the Nvidia drivers was pretty easy. All the commands were laid out right in front of me on this webpage, and all I had to do was essentially copy and paste the commands in a terminal window. But here's the problem with that. I kinda know how to run Linux. I know how to open up a terminal and type in sudo apt install Steam or whatever. But if you hand it off to, like, Tony down the road, he's not going to understand what any of that means. He doesn't know what a terminal is. He doesn't know any of these commands. That's one of the big downsides I have with this distro, is that it doesn't come with the Nvidia drivers right away. So gaming on Fedora takes a little bit more work than something like Linux Mint. Again, very good documentation. Everything was labeled and listed very clearly and concisely, and everything was explained just fine. You just need to break past that initial brick wall of actually learning how to run this kind of stuff. And most people aren't going to want to do that, so gotta dock points. The next thing that I had to deal with when using Fedora was I had to learn a new package manager. And I'm not talking about the GUI version of the GNOME package manager and all that stuff. Like that I already knew I had to relearn. I'm talking in the command line. They use an entirely different package manager there. What does that mean? So, on a Debian-based distribution, like Pop! OS or Linux Mint or just regular Ubuntu, I would go into a terminal. Let's say I wanted to install Steam. I would go into a terminal and I would type sudo apt install Steam. Easy, very quick command. Like, I could just type that in and I could run it. It'd be fine, it'd be easy. But Fedora decides to not use apt, which is the package manager in question in the command I just listed. No, instead, Fedora decides to use a package manager called DNF. More like, you did not finish this package manager. You don't need to fully understand the differences between DNF and apt, and to be quite honest with you, I don't know the differences between the two package managers, because guess what? You can just install apt on a Fedora system and bypass DNF entirely. Correction, no, you can't. Hello, this is me from the editing room. Apt is in the Fedora package repository, but you cannot use it to install packages on Fedora. You have to use DNF. I'm stupid, so I'm correcting myself right now. Now again, to give the Fedora project like credit, all the commands that you use, like I'm showing you all the commands right here. All the commands they use for DNF are like exactly the same as apt, so it really isn't that much of a problem to relearn those commands, but I don't care. All of this doesn't even matter anyway, because if you're using the GUI version of the package manager and you're browsing through all the menus and stuff, you're not gonna notice any of this stuff anyway. So I guess me complaining about this really is like a non-issue, but still something I wanted to bring up because I really wanted to keep that did not finish joke in the script. So after installing apt and getting through all of that, I decided to install NeoFetch, which is this fancy little window here that shows off all your hardware and what distro you're using and all this stuff. It's a really cool program. I like using it. So I install NeoFetch, I take a screenshot of it, and I post it to my twitter.com, which you can go follow me on. It's down in the description. And then someone on Twitter decides to tell me, hey, did you know that Fedora 36 is coming out really soon? And I go, no, I'm still just using an old Fedora 35 ISO that I downloaded months ago. And god damn it. So I'm kind of behind the loop on Fedora a little bit, just a little bit. But I'm sure all of these complaints that I have are going to remain in Fedora 36. So a little important note there for all of you Linux people who watch my channel. I'm still using Fedora 35. Very roundabout way of saying that I'm still using 35 when 36 is probably already out. After all that nonsense, installing Steam, installing emulators, installing all of my basic programs was super easy because I just went through the GUI and I decided to use Flatpaks on almost all of them, which you can change by clicking on this fancy little drop down here, and it'll drop it down and it'll show like, oh, do you want to use the Fedora RPMs or do you want to use the Flatpaks? And realistically, I could have used RPMs for almost everything in this system, but remember, spite. So we're clicking that Flatpak option. And the time it took from like fresh install to getting into a game was like, I don't know, 20 minutes, if even. And that's about as much time as you'd spend installing drivers on a Windows system anyway, so like, really isn't that much of a difference compared to Windows. There's just different steps you gotta take to get a gaming-ready system with Fedora. And emulators, they ran exactly the same. Just like on Windows, just like on my Pop! OS system, or even on Linux Mint. You know, you download the thing, you feed it an ISO or a ROM file, and it plays the game. That's it. It played the game. What do you want me to say? It's an emulator. Woo, it works. All right, guess what? It's time to scrap everything that we've talked about in this video and talk pretty much exclusively about GNOME. and how much I fucking hate it. Things I don't like about GNOME. I don't like that there's no taskbar at the bottom of the screen. There's not even like a dock like on Mac. You have to press the super key to bring that up. That's really annoying. Why is it like that? I straight up just don't vibe with this whole macOS style aesthetic that they got going on here. I'm not a fan of it. I don't like it. What's up with these fucking rounded corners? Why are these corners rounded? I do not vibe with this aesthetic. Even if GNOME is incredibly customizable and there's like a ton of extensions you can get that like let you fine tune every single aspect of your desktop environment experience, you still gotta download 2 entirely separate apps to make the most of it. Why does it not just come with the distro by default? Why you gotta download 2 entirely separate apps? It's not very user-friendly. Now we'll talk about things that I do like about GNOME. That's it. The main takeaway I get from GNOME is that I actually really dig this whole like multiple desktop layout thing where you can put different windows on different desktops, because on this computer I've only got one monitor, and it's not really a monitor, it's like a big TV. But on my work computer that I do all my daily activities on, I got both an ultra-wide and a secondary monitor, so I'm not really struggling for real estate over there. But on Frankenpab over here, I am struggling for it, so you know, I guess I like the multiple desktop thing. When I look at GNOME or GNOME or however you pronounce it, all right, everybody's got like 14 different ways to pronounce everything in Linux, and I'm gonna call it GNOME for the rest of this video, okay? When I look at GNOME, I see the same sort of form over function design that has been ever present, I'll say, on Macintosh computers. I prefer KDE Plasma or Linux Mint. I like to have at least a little bit of function when it comes to my form that doesn't require downloading 2 separate apps. Like, I'm really stuck on this because my entire selling point on Fedora was like, oh, it's really easy to use and it's really user-friendly and everything. And I'm going, okay, cool. And I'm able to use it just fine, but if I were to hand this to my mom, she's not gonna be able to get the same results I got because I know how to run Linux, like I said. I'm sure that there are plenty of people out there who appreciate GNOME and appreciate its aesthetic, and like genuinely I think GNOME would work really well, at least like this default way that it's all set up on Fedora. I think it would look really nice on a nice laptop. Like if you got one of those framework laptops without a dedicated Nvidia GPU inside of it, like yeah, this would work really well on that. But for like a desktop, I'm gonna install KDE Plasma on this eventually. I don't like GNOME. That's the conclusion. I don't like GNOME. Sorry. To conclude whatever the fuck this video was, Fedora is actually okay, and I do recommend it. I wouldn't recommend it to someone who's brand new to Linux, though, especially if you're someone like me and cares a lot about gaming performance and that you have an Nvidia graphics card and all that stuff. The more I use Fedora, the more I'm reminded that it's still Linux. You know, just like Debian, just like Arch, just like any of this, it's all gonna perform relatively the same. Like, it doesn't really matter what distro you pick because you're still gonna get Linux at the end of the day. And I know that there's probably a lot of like nitty-gritty like performance metrics I could go into, and I could like benchmark things and like record their you know, numbers and everything and display graphs like fancy old Linus Tech Tips or whatever, but that's not really the point of this video. I'm gonna be honest with you. Even though I'm a technical person and I like diving into the nitty-gritty of a lot of this stuff, I didn't really notice a difference in my day-to-day use. And if I can't notice a difference in my day-to-day use, then, you know, any normal person who'd be watching this video, they're not gonna notice either. Because remember, like, the hypothesis of this video is Fedora is a good beginner-friendly distro. Is that hypothesis correct? No, it is not. I conclude that it is not. But it's a good middle ground distro. Like, this is something that you would install after you've had some time to toy around with your first distribution. Like, let's say you get deep enough and you decide, I wanna start fresh. I wanna wipe the slate clean and I want to have a fresh and stable system. And I would recommend Fedora for that. It works pretty well. And you're also going to get really familiar with installing different DEs because, god damn it. I'm able to game, I'm able to emulate, I'm able to browse the internet, I'm able to, you know, talk on Discord, do everything, just like on my Debian system. The only thing that was different was the fact that Fedora did not ship with the Nvidia drivers, and I had to install those manually. It wasn't hard, but it was definitely a hurdle I had to jump over. Oh, and we never talked about Flatpaks in this entire video. They were fine. I really have nothing to say about it because all the programs that I downloaded in Flatpak format just worked. You know, I had zero issues with it. So, spite wins again. Thank you for watching to the end of the video. I am now going to thank my patrons. Thank you. If you would like to give me money and gain access to all of these fancy perks, you can follow the link in the description and at the end of this video to my Patreon and give me money. That would be cool of you. I would like to do more videos, but real life is catching up with me, and boy, is it not letting me sleep. So if you could toss me just $1, that would be very cool of you. Thank you. I'm going to go play Killer 7 now because I am tired. Holy shit.